Hotel Brothers. Wow, seeing you guys makes me very happy. I'm honored to be here. Quite frankly, I love my art center. I love the Jagna Afrocentricity International. I feel at home here. This is like warmth. I see myself reflected here. I'm a child of the ancestors. I am a defender of Garvey. Garvey is my champion. No African did what he did.
That's right.
So I am here as an international organizer for Afrocentricity International, and that really makes me happy to be here with Barack Amamazan, who is in fact the leader of our organization, and probably the only woman that I know who leads an international Pan-African organization. I'm delighted to be here with her. I'm delighted that we have also here in this great city an organization like this. I respect and honor all of you. You are beautiful people. This is a beautiful organization, beautiful group of people. We are geniuses. And sometimes we don't realize that. We are really our ancestors, but our ancestors were the ones who built civilization from the very beginning. And I just want to talk a little bit about what one of the principal ideas behind Afrocentricity International is. And I want to get all of you, as possible, as many as possible, to join with Shanuti Jacob to work as many other chapters in many different cities and places are working now for the same goals that we are working for. We decided that it was essential that we have a grassroots organization, an organization from the ground up, not from the top down. And that was after trying many years to bring about ancestral reverence on the part of African people, and also the idea of a United States of Africa, which has been a dream of the African world for a long time. He said, how do you bring this into existence? And after talking with presidents, and I spoke with several presidents about this, and the only president who vowed that he would do it immediately at the time was President Ward of Senegal. Said if we could get the United States of Africa, I would gladly be the governor of Senegal. But the people that I spoke with at Aaluja in 2004 decided that they would push it down the road, that nobody wanted to give up what they considered to be their sovereignty, which is a false concept, a concept that came out of the European discussion in 1688, but that's a whole nother discussion. But they were very adamant about this notion of sovereignty, that they didn't want to give up their sovereignty right now. They knew that it would have to happen. So I want to talk to you a little bit about the dream. It's a dream that not only did Haile Selassie have it, Kwame Nkrumah, but Sheikh Anta Diop, the greatest black intellectual of the 20th century, also had this dream. He saw it, and it was clear to him that the hydroelectric power in the continent of Africa was enough to energize the entire continent. Between the rivers Niger and Congo, and now the Limpopo, that you had enough energy with those rivers. The Congo and the Nile are two of the biggest rivers in the world. The Niger is also a major river. The Limpopo is a major river. And there are many other smaller rivers in Africa. We have enough hydroelectric energy that we can revolutionize every country in Africa. But not only that, we have more mineral resources still in the continent of Africa than half of the world put together. It's right there in the continent of Africa. Most of it is still underground. We have this kind of energy, this kind of material power. That is what Africa has. But not only that, we are also a nation with great forests. And in fact, our forests are second only to the forests in South America. And in fact, the destruction of the forest in Africa, which was at one time the largest forest in the world, the destruction of the forests of Africa for the development of the Western world is something that has been going on for now nearly 60 years. But before that, Africans were able to live with the environment in a way that was basically perfect. It is the perfection of ecology. We live with nature. We live with the animals. We didn't kill all the elephants, and we lived with them. We didn't kill all of the deer, the wildebeest. We didn't kill all of them. We lived with them. And we were able to do this because of our general philosophical outlook as African people, meaning that we accepted the idea of totems. We were one of the first people to accept the idea that on such and such a day, you don't kill deer. On such and such a day, you don't kill this animal or that fish or whatever. So that we allow, in an ecological way, for animals to survive without us eating all of them just because we like the meat of that particular animal, you see. So this was a brilliant idea that allowed African people to enjoy the nature that the divine had given us. And we were able to do that because of the philosophy that we had. There were no orphans in Africa. We didn't have orphan children. Everybody's part of a family. And if it wasn't a part of the mother and father at a particular time, because of disease or distress or warfare, that person became a part of another family. That's the way Africa took care of its people. So the continent has a lot to teach the world. That's why we start when we call Shanuti, Jackson, we call him Shanuti. Shanuti comes from the word Shenu. Shenu is a word that they used to call cartouche in the French. And that means someone who has been given authority, you see. And so it's a very powerful term. And that's why we call the leader of our organization Para, because Para, meaning the great house, was a name that the Africans called the leader of the first nation in the world, Kemet. They call the leader Para, meaning the great house, you see. Not Pharaoh. Pharaoh is a Hebrew word, you see. So they changed it. But, Europeans change everything. That's part of the problem. That's why we have to dig so deeply, because they've messed up everything. And they've changed all the names of places. And they still, in Africa, are changing names back to the original names of the people. Simply because so many names have been changed to European names. So that you have to clean house. And we'll talk about that in a minute. The whole notion of decolonization and decoloniality and all that. But let me finish this story, because you can see how important Afrocentricity International is. We would have the largest army in the world. Not that we necessarily need it. But if you take the 54 nations in Africa, or 55, depending on where Morocco is today or tomorrow, if you take those nations and you count up all the troops, the men and women in the armies of all those nations, you will have more people in the African army and the second largest one would be China. That's what the United States of Africa would give you. That would give you the mightiest army. We may not need all those troops. We get rid of some of the intersectional violence and interethnic violence. We may not need them, but at least the nations of Africa will not be burdened with this military expense. We would have the largest seacoast of any nation in the world. In terms of fishing, marine life around the continent of Africa, it would be massive if we had a United States of Africa. If we had a United States of Africa where we had one currency, the Afro, we can move between states and across borders. We can have just one currency. The Afro would be a powerful currency because it would be backed up by all the gold and diamonds in Africa itself. That's what we would have. If we could have a United States of Africa, we wouldn't need but one passport. Just as Africa. That's something. You know, I can leave my little village of Tafo in Ghana and go over and stay a few weeks over in Ojukwu in Nigeria. And there you go, see that? Be over there in Ojukwu. Take my same passport, Africa, and go over to Kenya and go to South Africa and the Congo. Just one passport. Can you imagine that? United States of Africa. This was a vision that Kwame Nkrumah had. And when Ghana got its independence, he said, that's nothing if it's not connected to Africa itself. And if we had that vision, that dream, we could change ourselves, we could change the world, we could change the way people feel about Africa. Can you imagine Africa having one trade policy when it's dealing with UK? You know, I know UK wants to have one trade policy too when it's dealing with the rest of the world. Y'all going Brexit maybe one day. Or not Brexit, I don't know. But I've been hearing discussions about it, right? But Africa, the United States of Africa, speaking with one voice. One voice. The president of Africa sitting right across from the president of China. And she would be able to tell him, look, Mr. President of China, I represent 2 billion people in Africa. We're a mighty nation. Africa would be one of the richest nations in the world. Not 45 of the poorest nations in the world, but one of the richest nations in the world. That's what could happen. This was no pipe dream. This was something that they actually saw. Our ancestors saw this. We see the same thing. Garvey saw it. Garvey dreamed it. Why? Where is the African army? Not the army of Togo. Nobody cared much about the army of Benin or Niger. But of Africa? Of a country like Africa, United States, where it's a country, not just a continent. Remember, this continent was divided not by us. Europe divided Africa. Each one trying to get rich by taking a part of Africa. That's what they did. They created the boundaries. People argue, they argue now. You know, Cameroon and Nigeria have a discussion about it. You know, what are we this, are we that, or this belong to you, or that belong? Everybody's arguing about land that came about largely because of what was done by the Europeans in 1884 at the Berlin Conference. We know that, and we teach that, you see. So why are we engaged in that discourse And that becomes a big discourse. Well, you know, I'm not going to give up my sovereignty. I'm not going to give up my boundaries. And yet you got FA people on both sides of the border. You got Yoruba people on both sides of the border. They're in Nigeria, they're in Benin. You got Akan people on both sides of the border. They're in Cote d'Ivoire as well as Ghana. So you got all these issues, but these issues are really non-issues. They're created issues, and they've been created by Europe, and it has crippled Africa. So the Afrocentricity International, as a worldwide organization, was started about 9 years ago by Barack Obama and myself, because we said, you know what? Just like Garvey said, and we studied Garvey for 2 years. We said, just like Garvey said, if it has to be done, somebody has to do it. If nobody's doing it, we'll do it. Now let me just say this, and I won't be long because I know you want to hear the Barack, but I want to say this very, very important. This is a very important thing. There are a lot of organizations that call themselves Pan-African. Question is, what is Pan-Africanism? Pan-Africanism is not a slogan, but they've made it a slogan. People have talked about Pan-Africanism as if it's a declaration. I'm a Pan-Africanist. People say, I'm a Pan-African. And then when you start talking to them, you discover that they are Pan-Africanists, but they're also all kinds of other things that they put before Pan-Africanism. That's one of our fundamental problems. There is an organization, a very, very creative organization in many ways, which started about 3 years ago, several years after we started Afrocentricity International, which has been a very quiet organization. We go around the world building black chapters of organization called AI. And they're in Australia, they're in Canada. We just build these organizations. And now in London, this is the center of it. We build these organizations, right? Now here's the thing with Pan-Africanists. So this organization became an internet phenomenon. It was a great phenomenon. And so as an internet phenomenon, what they did, they brought everybody in. Everybody came in, became parts of the organization. They had a whole 1,000 members in this organization. And then they started fighting. Some were Christians, some were Muslims. Some believed in this, some believed in that. And we said, that's a mistake. They don't understand what Pan-Africanism is. Pan-Africanism believes in fundamentally one thing, the centrality of the African person in his or her own narrative. That's all it can be. You can't put nothing in before that. There's no, I have even debates and discussions with socialist Pan-Africanism. And that's a big one. And I'm gonna tell you why I have an argument with it. I have an argument with it because I know exactly where it came from. It really started here in London. George Padmore. And I love Padmore. Padmore is one of my favorite people. He was a Trinidadian, very, very strong, but because he joined the Communist Party, his ideology was not Afrocentric. His ideology was socialism. And by having an ideology that was socialism, it led him to argue and to interpret Pan-Africanism only in the context of socialism. You can't do that. It has to be in the context of what is in the best interest of African people. If the Chinese are involved in Africa, they're involved in Africa for their own benefit. If the Russians are involved in Africa, they're involved in it for their own benefit. If the capitalists are involved in Africa, they're involved in it because of their own benefit. The question is, what is Africa expressing? That is the only way you can have a true Pan-Africanism. And that's why we start with saying, first of all, and it's amazing how many African people are scared of their own ancestors. We said, well, why don't you just have a respect for your ancestors? That's all we ask. Well, that stuff is strange stuff. I don't want to go there. I don't believe in all that strange stuff. Just respecting your grandfather, your grandmother. Well, why's that strange? What's wrong with that? I went to China, been to China 6 times. And China is an atheistic country. But almost every shop you go in, every house you go in, they got a shrine to their ancestors. Yeah. I said, no, this is strange to me. Black people get scared of their own ancestors. Well, we're the ones who created the tradition. In Europe, we bury our dead right on the same land that they worked on. Sometimes right in the same compound. We had an understanding that they were with us forever. And that's why the concept of the Almighty God was a remote concept. That concept was a creator concept. Create, and then that's it. That's the finish. Finish. We didn't have no concept like no personal savior. No, my ancestors are my personal saviors. My ancestors are the ones that I go to for inspiration. And that's all I know. I don't know anything else. If I knew anything else, I would tell you. If I could give you factual information about anything other than my ancestors, I would tell you that. I don't know that. Now, there's some people who know, but I don't know. Or they say they know, you know. But I know my ancestors. And I know the collective ancestors, the global ancestors of African people. And I praise the name of those who gave us the names of the divine, like Abantuum and Amen and Ra and Ptah. Those who understood Capra. Those who gave us the moral concept of Ma'at, balance and harmony, and order and justice and righteousness and truth and reciprocity. This I honor. That I know. I know we founded civilization. I know we founded culture. There are no architectural structures in the world older than those found on the continent of Africa. I was just in South Africa, in Mpumalanga, and went up to see the birthplace of the sun. 100,000 years old, black people stood up, the stela in that place. Napa Playa in southern Egypt. Thousands of years older than the pyramids, which are also created by black people. All of this I know. That I can speak on. Mathematics. The first mathematical instrument in the world was structured by an African woman in what is now called Swati. Used to be called Swazi. The Limbombo bone, where a woman ticked off on a bone the number of days in her menstrual cycle. So no other mathematical calculator is 48,000 years old, except that. This is African. I mean, you can, why is it that you start with the Greeks when the Africans were the ones that gave us physiology and anatomy, chemistry, biology? Now, some of y'all seem like y'all don't believe that, but they did it through mummification. Mummification taught all those sciences. That's why we know all these sciences. That's why we understood that. Because the Africans practiced mummification. We gave the world a calendar. All these things. So I'm not going to go further, but there are many, many questions you may have. But I just want to say to you, brothers and sisters, I'm so proud of you. I'm proud of you for coming out to this meeting. I'm proud of seeing friends of mine. Really delighted to see you and to come here and to be with Shanuti. Shanuti is just, he's just been so gracious to us since we've been here. And we have actually two of Dr. Mazama's children are here who are outstanding children. They've taken us all around. We're really, really happy to see them here. So we honor, because we hope that we have in London a powerful chapter, because we have a powerful chapter in Paris. And the chapter in Paris wants to, they want to communicate with the brothers and sisters here, because they're building a ground roots organization that's looking for the idea of African unity. We support African unity wherever it is. For example, when they had the attack on the Nigerians in South Africa, Afrocentricity International responded immediately, said, you know, this is totally un-African and non-African, you know, because it was not xenophobia, as some people said. We said it was Afrophobia. Because they're not killing white people, and they're not killing Asians. They were killing black people. We said that's Afrophobia. Yeah. We totally against that. We totally against what they call tribalism. We don't believe in that. We think that you should certainly learn and be involved in your local traditions. That's important. We all accept our local traditions. I accept mine. I tell people, my ancestors are Harriet Tubman and Nat Turner. These are my heroes. I understand my personal history, my own local history. But in the end, I have a broad history. When Nanny of Jamaica is mine, she belongs to me. That's right. Zumbi of Brazil belongs to me. Right. Loingo of Venezuela belongs to me. Delgrade of Guadeloupe belongs to me. I'm a Pan-African at heart. So all Africans belong to me. And I appreciate you for listening to me and giving me the invitation to talk with you tonight. Thank you.
Really great. Okay, Doctor, thank you very much. Sesh, Molefi, Asante, thank you very much. That was brilliant. Did you enjoy that? Everybody, did you enjoy that? Yes. So much wisdom for us to think about. Yeah, so would you like to take questions now, or should you wait? Yeah, okay. What we're going to do, people? Okay. Yeah?
Okay, yeah, fine.
You take a few now?
Yeah, I take a few.
Okay, so if you got some questions, we don't long statements, really questions. If you're going to make a nice comment and compliment, but we rather questions so we get information. We're really about Afrocentricity, it's really about solutions to things.
That's
Yeah?
right.
So if you got some questions, please, if you'd like to come up here, Dr. Molefi, yeah?
Thank you.
So, no problem.
Yeah, I'm very, very happy. Okay, all right. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right. You first.
Yes.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Hello, Doctor. My name is Wanji.
Wanji.
I've been following you and I'm out for many years now,
Thank
along with other lecturers like Bob Basson.
Yes.
And
Yes.
faculty.
So in Cameroon.
I'm from Cameroon.
That's right. Yeah. We've been to Cameroon. We got chapter in Cameroon. Right. Thank you.
And when Afrocentricity came about, and there was a concept that there have to be a solid foundation for Africa to build.
Yeah.
And that foundation has to be mainly the spiritual aspect of the thing. Mm-hmm. Now, in 2000, I'm sorry if my question is a bit
That's right.
long, I just need to give some background.
Uh-huh.
I met with, at the conference with other lecturers I just cited, Bob
Yes.
and they initiated the project of building an African spiritual center.
Yes, of course.
An African.
I know about I know about it. Right. Uh-huh.
And he was so delighted to meet you and Amamazam in Cameroon, because he said that he was waiting for those initiatives.
Yes.
How far are you with that project?
If you don't mind, I'm going to defer to Barat Mazama because she's going to talk about that.
Good.
Because she I think she may even have a video. Do you have the video on the shrine? It's in French. Well, they could see it maybe, but anyway, but she will talk about that. So that would be very good. Okay, let's go. I defer.
Yeah, so my name is Sam Sagara, all the way from Uganda, East Africa, the cradle of human beings and human My friends, I thank you so much for looking at the Afrocentrism completely.
Yeah.
I think I know.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. My query was, sometime back when I was studying at Crossing Corridors Fund, there was a gentleman. So that's what I said you was going to do.
Okay, so your question to me.
My question is, my question.
That's all right.
Yeah, my question.
I enjoy it.
Exactly. We agree, definitely. But I mean, what the mechanism are you going to enforce, or rather try to persuade anybody in the education system here? Like now, the Labour Party has said that we have black history in forcing schools and all that. This one,
That's correct.
But one is they must study in their medium of Swahili.
Okay, well, thank you very much. We accept that.
Yeah.
There's no issue with us in Afrocentricity International about Kiswahili. In fact, it is AU has already agreed to that.
Yeah.
It is the only African language that they say is a universal African language that they're going to use. And this was proposed in the 1960s, a long time ago. And we can never forget Dr. Maulana Karenga in the US made it a popular idea. And in 1977, this is in the 60s, when he created Kwanzaa. But in 1977, at the Lagos FESTAC conference, he made a big argument at that conference that we should have Kiswahili as the international African language. And the reason for that is because it's spoken by a small ethnic group, but it's understood by 60 million people. Rather than to choose a huge language like Hausa or Kikuyu or Zulu or Yoruba, well, we would have arguments between people. Why do you choose their language rather than our language? Kiswahili doesn't have a massive indigenous population. So it is being used, and it's being used now. I mean, they have decided that. And I agree with you. And so, Asante-san.
Salama.
Salama, Siku. Okay, there was one there. Yes, please.
Greetings, and thank you very much to Elder Jegna. I hope I pronounced his name correctly, because it's important that we use our original African
Absolutely,
names.
that we use African names.
My name is Zani Jem, and I'm pleased to see you in person. We're following each other on Twitter.
Okay.
We had to bring it in. I didn't want to go. It's a medium we must use to reach out to people in the black community.
We must, yeah.
So really, for me, I just wanted to learn from you about the notion of, you mentioned about the language, and we've already identified Kiswahili from Kwanzaa as something that we can all agree on. But you mentioned as well something that Kwame Nkrumah talked about, the single currency.
Yes.
Could you elaborate more on that? Simply because, for example, when I was in Jamaica recently, it was so beautiful to see Queen Nanny and these other folks on the currency.
Yes.
So I'm just wondering how that would work in terms of, in Ghana, they have respected leaders, you have Thomas Sankara. How would you identify who goes on that? So again, like the language, we could, allow for people to feel happy that their communities are being identified.
You have asked a very powerful question. And one of the things that we have said in our writings about Afrocentricity International and about the United States of Africa is that one of the best ways to start is with the least powerful ethnic groups. In other words, that to create a community where the single most important thing is not your ethnic identity, but actually the passion to which you hold the ideas of a United States of Africa. But there would be an organization within the financial monetary structure that would be involved in choosing how the currency is decorated and so on. And I think that we have so many different iconic personalities and people and ideas in the African world that it will take 1,000 years before we put everyone on it. But I think that they could do it in many ways, and maybe I should, in one of my writings, propose how it could be done. Because these things are simple. You just take, Dr. Mazzama says it takes courage, and it takes knowledge, and it takes consciousness. If we can do that, we can sit down and do it so that it would represent all regions of the continent.
And just to, if you don't mind me saying so, Professor, perhaps the way forward might be a people vote.
Absolutely,
So Thomas and Cara would without question be there,
Well,
but it'd be something that could begin in that way, so that we have, as you say, genuine leaders or
Yes.
community activists, whoever, that are, as you say, pan-Africanists.
Yeah, the thing with, I agree with that, but the problem with it seems to me that one of the problems with the Democratic vote at this level would be that a lot of people don't know the people, and the other one would be that where you have 70 million people who consider themselves Hausa Fulani, they can just create their person and they will win. So it's a big challenge. So I would think that some committee with you on it as an expert would be very useful, because Thomas Sankara is one of my heroes. And in fact, he had invited me to Burkina Faso just before he died. So I love Sankara. I mean, and in fact, the shirt I have on, is from Burkina Faso.
Wow.
Yeah, I love Burkina Faso.
Yes,
It's one of my great
Thank you.
favorites. Yes, please. Yes, please.
Hello.
Hello.
My name is Celine. I'm Igbo extraction.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how we greet. And I have a lot of challenges with the new thought process, if you like, coming out of Africa, African American. I definitely am going to be part of this
Yes.
organization.
Oh, wonderful. All right. There you go. I love it. I love it.
Okay. What I wanted to say was that I first was exposed to your work when I was searching for more work on Dilla.
Yes.
And I bought your book by mistake.
Wait a minute. I should say to you, Kyle may say.
No, I was looking for more work on Dilla because I was exposed to his work some 20 years ago, and I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And so I stumbled across your book, and I didn't realize it was written by you until it arrived on the doorstep, and I opened and I read it, and then I thought, oh, who's this doctor? Who is this chap? You know, and that's the first time that I actually heard your name, and then I started to look into your work and into your, you know, the videos that you have on YouTube with your lectures. And I just want to say I'm really honoured to be here to witness this lecture. I think we are here in a historic time, and definitely more kudos to you and your team.
Thank you.
I'm interested more to do with the language as well. I have a contentious issue with the Hebrew, the word Hebrew, the way that it's being used in the ancient languages in Africa, and also the spiritual consciousness.
Yes.
I'm very much interested in that. I do understand the Ma'at philosophy and how that relates because it's coming out of Africa.
Thank you.
However, my direct experience is in Igbo land.
Yes.
So Omenana
Yes,
is the one that I do. And I'm very much interested in seeing how that interacts directly. Because a lot of work has been done on the Yoruba side, connecting Yoruba to Medinetta and ancient Egypt.
Well, I guess there's no question yet, but let me just say that one of the best works on this is by an Igbo intellectual, Chinwesu, who has written on the connection of ancient Egyptian language to Igbo. So I can get that information.
Yes, I don't have a direct question.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Okay, yes, sir.
Okay, first thing first. My name is Manisol.
Okay.
But first things first. I want to say that I'm very pleased to be friends with so many ancestors, especially people from the African continent, like the Igbo sister here. Pick up a couple of stuff about the Igbo just simply by listening to you.
Oh, okay.
Like you guys are marked with two quick hands. Omenana.
It's either Omenana or Dinana or Omenana, depending on which dialect of Igbo you're from.
Okay. That's just a bit of a side point. My main point of talking about is keep forward to a unified African continent as the United States of Africa. I'm not taking that away from you, but I'm just saying that me and my brother feel that with the fact that it's already a United States Africa, that will get people confusing. So I would propose the term Greater African Republic.
Oh, I like that. I don't have a problem with it. Whatever you call it. My answer to you is I think it's a great term because the Greater African Republic should include Jamaica and Haiti.
Yes.
So thank you for that question. Got one more?
This is a question.
Okay.
After this is over, I would like you to like to know more information about your organization.
Here's
Because he speaks to my sister there around the back, they know why.
All right.
Just speak to any of us, no problem.
Thank you very much. Yes, sir, brother. Quick.
Greetings.
Just stand up so they can get to see you.
Greetings. I'm Dilla. I'm from Ojukwu land, as you said.
Yes.
Basically, everybody's introducing their
Right.
talent. And my question is with reference to America. That's interesting. Like, I'm somebody who checks out Twitter a little bit as well.
From where?
I'm somebody who checks out Twitter a little bit as well. And it seems, if we're assessing our global African position right now, it seems like from the outside looking in. So I'm just asking you to like enlighten us as to how you see us being able to face this obstacle in terms of Black America separating themselves from a global African identity. Obviously, I'm a Nigerian, and as somebody who's from Nigeria, when I hear some of the stuff that's said by like African Americans that you can't, or Adolf, that you can't understand our struggle. Like in Nigeria, the struggle in Nigeria is a struggle anyone can struggle in this world right now. The poor people in Nigeria. So for us to hear that, I know if they were to hear what the Americans are saying, Nigerians won't be able to connect with them. And if so,
Well, I hear your question, and I've heard it several times, and I meant this. We were going to talk about it today. But let me ask you a question. Did you hear our response to ADOS?
no.
Yeah, I did.
Oh, well, let me just tell you, because I'll make this real short. The organization ADOS, ADOS, stands for American Descendants of Slaves. All right? And it came out of a reactionary group of Republicans, Black Republicans, with the idea that if we ask for reparations, in order to ask for reparations, we ought to be able, since in the US, much like in the UK, you got Africans from everywhere. We need to be able, they said, to identify who is a direct descendant of the enslaved Africans in the United States in order for us to get reparations. That's their argument. And they said, therefore, we can't be concerned about the Jamaicans. We can't be concerned about the Brazilians. We just want to know who are those Africans who were the American descendants of slaves. Well, Afrocentricity International knocked that down immediately. Said, no, the majority of African Americans don't believe that. The majority of African Americans have never even heard of the organization. It's an internet organization. So here's the thing. Our argument is this: that the notion of reparations is an international, global notion of the fact that Africa itself, the continent of Africa, was injured. Not only was the continent of Africa injured in the loss of millions of its people, but the African people of all ethnic groups were damaged by not just enslavement, but also by colonization. And so reparations from the West to the African people belongs to all African people. And we don't make a distinction. In the United States, Afrocentricity International doesn't make a distinction between people wherever they're from. I mean, the leader of our Philadelphia chapter, I think it's from Gabon. So we don't make, there's no distinction in any of this in terms of the masses of African people who live in the United States. So our idea is that ADOS is a marginal organization. It's two people, basically, a man and a woman out of California, who has promoted this on the internet, and they do not like us. And they have attacked me. You may see some attacking me on YouTube, but the idea is that, brother, we with you.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. So I know you are an old outfit. It's like short to say that. Like, so you're saying that Africans, Americans in general, you know, if we just
they do not support ADOS.
Like, they
no.
Just calling out for
absolutely, absolutely, and it's been called out by a lot of people. Okay, you got one more question? Yes.
Okay. This is Shakara, and then.
All right, sure. All right, two more. Go ahead.
My name is Kete.
Yes.
I'm an African born in America, lived in London for many years.
Okay.
The truth of our history as global African people is often known in groups like this. We have scholars like yourself running African American studies programs. We have all the books, we have all the footnotes, we have all of that. But the information about who we really are and what we really did and why we are important and what our place is in humanity is still not known by most of us globally.
Right.
And it feels like when we know who we are and what our history is, because it will connect us, that's going to be a motivation for the kind of centrality that we need. So I'm just wondering, do you have a particular plan for that, or and just related to that? Although I don't know that much about it, I was recently at a meeting that had to do with the UN Decade for Africa. And what I thought about in terms of that was that they had some program here recently about, and excuse me, because I'm not a historian, so I may not say this probably correctly. They had one of these programs, they had a documentary, Britain is good for documentaries, saying, yes, there were some lost black pharaohs out of the Sudan.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
Right, okay. And of course, I had been taught by Robert Walker beforehand, yes, they happy to give us the ones out of the Sudan, and we give up all the ones who started everything.
Right.
So, and I looked at that, and I thought the same thing you did. I said, these people have no. But then again, most of us would not have known that. So
absolutely.
I just wonder what we do about that.
Well, thank you very much. And it's a good segue into my book is called The History of Africa. The History of Africa. It's a comprehensive history of Africa, and it deals with this issue. But let me just tell you this. All of the Pharaohs who led Egypt were black, with the exception of those who were invaders. And the invaders included Greeks at one time, Persians at another time, and Assyrians at another time. All the ones who were of the 25th dynasty, who came from Nubia, controlled all of Kemet, all of Egypt. They controlled all of Egypt. But this was just like when Germany controlled France. It didn't mean they were a different race. They were all black people. The Nubians were black, but so were the Egyptians. They were all black. Egypt did not change in its complexion until you had the infusion of Arabs in the 7th century, this era. The Arabs came to Egypt in 639 AD. If you're talking about BC, you're talking about a whole black genealogy of African leaders, kings and queens. Hatshepsut was black, Ramses was black, Thutmose III was black, Imhotep, the first builder of a pyramid, was black. Menes, the one who founded Kemet, was black. All these were black people. So they were trying to be slick. They tell you, oh yeah, the 25th dynasty, that family was a black family because they came from Sudan, what is now Sudan. But the thing is that all the others were black too, and they came from right there in Kemet. So you got a good point. Thank you, Sister McKay.
Last question now, and we're going to move on. Sorry, my brother. Last question.
I'll be very quick. I wasn't even going to say nothing until this ADOS point came up.
Yes.
I wanna I want to respectfully say that I would guard against the idea that they're just a marginal group. Only because, and they are to some degree, but I think a lack of awareness of them is not necessarily a disagreement with some of the things that they say. And in my experience, the anti-African sentiment is easily riled up among our people. And in my interactions with brothers and sisters, the extent to which they have been able not just to forward an idea, but redefine Pan-Africanism, which they have attacked profusely, and been able to get people to agree with their definitions and their ideas around Pan-Africanism is something that we have to take very seriously in a multimedia age in which ideas spread like wildfire. And unfortunately, as Pan-Africanists, we are not best adept in terms of informing our people about what it is we say we stand for. So I guard against that. My question then, and I did see your response. In fact, I actually typed a response to your first response before you did the video. So my question is twofold. The first one is, one of the things that you said was about the Russian bot argument, I'm not a particular fan of the Russian bot argument, only because it presumes to suggest for many people that the Democratic Party is more favorable to our interests than the Republican Party. And so I'd like to...
we can have a big discussion about that, because that's a true statement.
Well, are you saying?
I think I understand your point, but can I just go ahead?
I want to just get to my second, which has got out of my head now.
I'm sorry.
My second.
It'll come back. Let me just say it'll come back. You can have it say. But let me just say this about the Russian bot issue. The Russian bot issue is extremely important in the context of American political culture. The reason for it is because it has been shown that the Russians put a lot of advertisements in the African American community in the last election that divided had the community arguing about Hillary Clinton in a very false way, and that split the African American vote. And that was a very and Facebook has admitted all that. So we know that happened. You know, they're advertising things, and so people would run there and say this is this and this is that, and they argued about issues that shouldn't even relate to us. You see, but those issues existed. That's why I suggested that I don't know the other reason that I don't know. I've been in the Black movement for nearly 60 years. I don't know any African American leadership who would support ADOS. I don't know anybody who would come out and say, who's significant in our movement, who would say, I support ADOS. So where did it come from? I had to do my own research. And I didn't mean to get into this, but let me get into it a little deeper for just 1 minute. We have a lady running for the office of president named Kamala Harris. She was the Attorney General for the whole state of California, elected. Now, ADOS came out initially after her. And they came after her because here's the situation. Her father is Jamaican, her mother is Indian. So ADOS, starting in California, where she was, said, well, she's not really an African American. Her father is from Jamaica. Her mama is from India. She's running as if she's black, and we have a problem with that. Well, I had a problem with ADOS making an argument like that, because it's a stupid argument. Many of the leaders of the African American community have come from other places. Kwame Ture came from Trinidad. You know, so we came, Marcus Garvey came from Jamaica. And all these we accept as African American heroes. So it's a stupid argument. I just want to say that just don't be frightened. It ain't going nowhere.
I hear you.
Don't worry about it.
But really. I remember my second point. Oh, sorry, I'm not gonna.
Your second point.
Yeah, just very quickly, because I know. There's so much I could say about what you just said.
Okay, we'll talk.
We'll talk after. But the other point, though, in that respect, is that there's a number of people that are from the so-called conscious community who I have had debates with all over the world, particularly in America, who are trying to impress upon our people, especially in black consciousness of Pan-Africanism, that ADOS is a legitimate movement that is not anti-African, that is looking out for the best. And I'm talking about this is in the conscious community. Some of them have criticized and watched your video and came after you for what you said, and I've had to debate them because they're basically they're betraying the thing, yeah. So I'm guarded against the idea that we don't, you know what I'm saying? Because even within our movement, there are people that are actively denying the truth for the sake of bamboozling.
You and I are on the same team, and let's fight them.
Most definitely.